David Bouchard here, coming to you from beautiful British Columbia, Victoria, British Columbia, on the unceded lands of the Lukwagan peoples, mainly Songhees and Kwakwaka'wakw, some Coast Salish peoples, Sioux people. This is the third in a series of 5 videos that I'm going to do on reading and my perception of what it takes to become a reader. And I'm hoping to be of some assistance to teachers, new teachers, administrators, parents. And everything that I've said is based on the teachings of Maria Montessori. And you can find all of this and more if you're looking for a wonderful read. When I was a principal, I used to buy this particular book for every one of our staff. And the first day of school, I'd put it in everybody's mailbox because I think it's something everybody should know. What's it take to become a reader? And my first 2 clips dealt with the first 2 issues. The first thing it takes is time. You can't, by the way, the book is called I Learned to Read and Write, The Way I Learned to Walk and Talk, by Marlene Barron, president of the Montessori Association at the University of New York. And you can find it wherever and you'd love it. There. So, according to Maria Montessori, and everything I've learned over the years that I've lived as a father, as a teacher, as an administrator, it takes time. How much time? I don't know, but kids are all different. Some mature more quickly, some are not risk takers, and we put them all in the same box, and we say, by this time, we're going to expect you to be reading. And if you're not reading, we're going to label you a non-reader, and you're going to create a non-reader. Kids always live up to what we tell them they are. Go ahead, label them, and you create them. They need time. How much time? I don't know, but I will say this, Albert, I think grade 3 is too early. I don't think you have to go there again. We've kind of grown past that. We picked that up from south of the border in America, where they have the Department of Reading. The Ministry of Education has this huge influx on reading. They think that you can teach anybody to read at any age. It's not true. They need time. How much? I don't know. Second thing they need is a hero. And I'll be honest with you, I have 2 sons who are non-readers and a daughter who's a reader. And in my world, are related to the hero hat. Teachers, put aside the curriculum. I know it's important, but just put everything aside and focus on reading. And I promise you, everything else is going to grow in leaps and bounds. Focus on reading and everything will work itself out, period. And the way to do that is to let kids see that you love to read, that you love stories. Tell them about what you're reading, share stories with them, get storytellers in, heck, for that matter, get me into your classrooms through webinar, and let's talk stories, and make sure you put on that hero hat. They've got to know that you, their hero, love reading and love stories. And the third thing it takes is what I'd like to talk to you about today. It takes books to become a reader. Simple. And it might sound simple. It's not that simple. Do you know how many schools in our country don't have access to books? I can't tell you how often I've been to various northern reserves where they don't have a library. They don't have classroom libraries. True story. In Cold Lake, Alberta, probably about 18 years ago, 20 years ago, I gave a book to a 17-year-old young Cree hoop dancer. Just a beautiful young man. Signed it, and he looked at me and he said, "This is the first book that I've ever owned." And I said, "Yeah, as if." And he said, "That's true." I said, "You don't own a single book?" "No." I said, "How can that be?" He said, "Hey, Mr. Bouchard, I don't know a single one of my friends who owns a book." It's true. They've got to have books. And that's not just Indigenous kids who don't have books. Come on, let's face it. In downtown Toronto, how many kids don't have access to a book? It's just the saddest thing in the world. Let's fundraise and let's get them books. And as we think of getting books into their hands, by the way, it need not necessarily be a written book now. It can be an audio book or it can be an ebook, but there's something about that paper book. Why? Because it allows you so much variety. It allows you to use illustrations and it allows you to access so much more of that world. Let's get books into their hands. Raise money and get books. But when you get the books, it has to be the right kind of books. So it needs books. But the books need 2 things. And the first thing they have to be is inclusive. Kids, in fact, anybody has to be able to see themselves in a book in order to want to read it. If you don't identify with that book, you're not going to want to read it. Period. They have to see themselves, which is why for Indigenous students and those who want to learn about our culture, for the first time in history, we have Indigenous writers and illustrators. We do. For high schools, for middle schools, for primary schools. We have some amazing women artists, some amazing men authors and artists, and they're there. You have to find them and get those into their hands. And for the first time in history, they're accurate. Keep in mind that if you looked in our libraries 25, 30 years ago, there was nothing. There was a couple books that dealt with indigenous issues. Hiawatha, written by Henry Longfellow in the 1880s in Kentucky, and he messed it all up. He said that Hiawatha was Ojibwe. By the shores of Gitchigumi, by the shiny Bixie water, stood the wigwam of Nokomis. Nokomis is grandma in Ojibwe. The truth is, he wasn't Ojibwe. He was Onondaga. And what's the difference? They were killing each other at the time. It's a massive, massive mistake. It was all wrong. So what we had was all wrong, or it was very, very distasteful and wrong to have it included. Indian in the cupboard. Most schools have taken it out. But for the first time, it's there. And it's not just indigenous peoples. Come on, if you've got a group of, and there's just so many varieties of various nationalities in our country, whether they're African or Filipinos, you can't not go to Google and look for books on Filipinos by Filipinos. And you have to bring that material in and share it with love, not only with the Filipino students, but with the kids around so that they can look at their culture and say, yeah. All right, books have to be inclusive. And the second thing books have to be is accessible. Don't give a child a book, Lord of the Rings, if they don't have the skills to read it. They're not going to read it. They have to have the skills to read it, which is why you have to very, very carefully seek out the right product for the right group, for the right child. And it's a real chore, which is why the next short vid I'm going to have is I'm going to make a whole crew of suggestions, all kinds. Yes, some for indigenous, none for Filipino students, but there's that general package of books that are, I think some of you like if you don't know them. I'm going to share some of my favorites through the years, and I expect I'll be hearing from some of you because people tend to say, hey, have you read this? And I was like, no, but I will. Okay, today then I wanted to say that the third component of becoming a reader is it takes books. But it takes the right kind, books that are inclusive and that are accessible. And it's our job to go out there and find them. Good luck.